country, we have something called ranked choice vote, plurality voting, which is the same as first past the post. If anybody knows what that means, like a candidate can win with a plurality of the votes, which is different from the majority of the votes. So they can win with less than 50% of the votes. That's how plurality of vote works. And ranked choice voting makes sure that the winner of an election gets more than 50% of the votes. So to us, it sounds a lot more democratic because it represents the majority of the people. Whereas a candidate that wins with 35% of the votes, even though he has more than the other candidates, he wins, but it's only 35%. So, let's see. Like I said, ranked choice voting, it guarantees that the winner has a majority. It also does other things, which are, in my opinion, preferable than the system that we have now. So this guy, Joe, he won with 35%, but 65% of the population didn't vote for him. So that doesn't seem very fair. And that's how it works right now. And so that's one of the disadvantages of plurality voting. The other disadvantage is that, I don't know if you are familiar with the concept of splitting the vote, or the spoiler effect. So that if, and that's why people are discouraged from running, because if you have, let's say, one candidate like, well, I'll give an example. I think it comes up later, but since I'm on the roll now. Do you remember Gore and Bush and what was his name? Nader. So Nader ran, and he had quite a few votes, but by doing that, he took away votes from Gore, and Bush ended up winning. So that's called the spoiler effect, because Gore and Nader were closer to each other in terms of, ideology. And the people who voted for Nader, they definitely didn't want to have Bush win, but that's what happened. So that's why people say, no, don't run, because you're going to ruin it for this other candidate. So that's what happens. You're forced to vote for the person that you like the least, or not the least, but you don't like the best. Right. So you wouldn't vote for Bush, if you are a Democrat, I guess. But you would want to vote for Nader, but you don't. You vote for, you don't. Am I right in doing this? Nader? Yes. Yeah. You want to vote for Nader, but you don't. You vote for Gore, even though he's not your favorite. Right. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Officials can win without majority, and that's what we just found out, that our current system lets somebody win without the majority support of the population. So this is an example of the spoiler effect. I don't know if you guys remember it. This was, I don't even remember which year, but there was this mayor who was, recalled because he was a crook. And so, but then he ran again with a lot of other people, and the other candidates had minority votes. So together they had more than Correa, but he ended up winning again, even though most of the people didn't want him. So that's a problem with plurality voting. You just so anyway, this is how it's done in ranked choice voting. You rank your candidates by preference. If Joe is your first choice, you put him down as first. Dan is your second choice, Kate third, and Mark fourth. And then, if nobody has 50%, then we start eliminating the candidate that has the least votes, but their second choice gets transferred to the second choice of that voter. So Mark's second choice vote was Dan, and so he got the votes, the second choice vote.
Oh, I see.
And then this continues. So Kate's, people who voted for Kate, 10% of them wanted Joe as the second choice, and 10% of them wanted Dan as a second choice, which ends up making Dan cross the 50% line, and he becomes the winner, whereas otherwise Joe would have been the winner with the plurality voting, but he would not have had the majority. This way, there's a true majority. The winner always has a true majority. Let's see what comes next. So these are some of the advantages of ranked choice voting. So like we said, they have the support of the majority once they get elected. It certainly eliminates the spoiler effect, because you don't have to choose. Here's a second choice, and then it does inspire more people to vote and more candidates to run, because you're not discouraged from running, even though you might not be the front runner. Eventually, like this Dan guy, he thought that he was going to lose, but he won. So. And it does foster state and federal ranked choice voting, because what ranked choice voting does, do you remember that Bedford actually, 54% of the residents here voted for ranked choice voting the last time it was on the ballot. Am I right? But then on the state level, it didn't work. But the people in Bedford were actually for it. It didn't pass. So it means that ranked choice voting, we start at the ground level. We don't start at the top. We don't start trying to make it work for presidency or even statewide governorship. We start at the local level, school boards, select boards, and so that's where it's actually being implemented in many, many areas of the country, in many towns, many localities. Anyway, so this is a ballot for ranked choice voting. So you put down your first choice, your second choice, your third choice, and so on. It's recommended that you fill in all the choices, because if you don't, and your first choice gets eliminated, then your vote gets wasted, just like in the old system. Mm-hmm. So if you rank them, then you have a chance of your second choice or your third choice or your fourth choice at least making a difference. Your vote never gets wasted. So this is how they count. So if the top one has 50%, so she clearly wins, like right now. But if there's no 50%, then the one that has the least gets added to the second choice of that candidate, and it goes on like that. Until we have one candidate or two candidates, and one of them ends up having more than 50%, and he's the winner. So let's see where it is used. It's used in Australia, in Ireland. In Ireland, it's called proportional ranked choice voting, which they have more than two parties. and they also have representative government. So they have a multi-party system, but at the same time, they also have ranked choice voting to rank those candidates. So that's and then in Northern Ireland, in Canada, you know, they have it on the local level. They don't have it, in Canada, they don't elect the president with ranked choice voting, but within the provinces, like within our states, they do have ranked choice voting. And in Scotland, they have it, New Zealand, and then, where are we? In America, it's all over the place. Actually, this only shows the states. So in Maine and Alaska, they have it on all levels. They vote for president with ranked choice voting, they vote for governors. So those are actually the only two states where it's used for all levels of government. And then the light blue states, I think that, what does it say?
2020 Democratic.
Okay. So all these little dots, it's where it's being used. California, you know, Oregon, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Cambridge, they have had it for decades. Cambridge has ranked choice voting, proportional ranked choice voting, and they've had that for a long time.
1938.
1938, okay.
He has,
And then this is a map that shows more in detail in Massachusetts where there's local interest, where there's a campaign. Anyway, it's not very visible, but it's not like it's not there, you know, especially around this area. There are like, I believe, 7 or 8 towns that have passed home rule petitions that we want to try to do here. Acton has it, Arlington, Newton, Burlington, Brookline.
oh, Bedford's purple too.
Well, yeah, what is
State ballots.
Right, because we went to the select board and they said, bring it to the town meeting, but then there was I think, he's gonna talk about that later, that the lawyer, the town lawyer had a problem with the wording, so we had to work on that before it's actually.
We're trying to set a meeting with him to try to go over that.
Yeah, 3 of us are gonna gang up on it.
A local, statewide organization that helps us all these efforts to get going, and so they have their own lawyer, which is an amazing guy, Greg. So he's very useful. And I think you were going to take over from you.
Yeah, so what would RCP do for Bedford? So it would inspire more candidates to run and more voter engagement. Now you might think, you know, a lot of those committees, it's hard to even get enough people to run to fill all the positions. But there was about 3 years ago, there was a school committee race. So it has happened where somebody didn't run because their friend was running and they didn't want to, you know, pull votes off of her. And, you know, confidence that you know that the office holders are supported by majority, eliminate the fear of a spoiler effect, lead in democratic innovation, and also from a previous one, it's really fostering it. I think it's important to have it in Bedford, just for Bedford, but it's also a way to foster it at the state and I don't know if in my lifetime in the United States level. Yeah.
Oh, your dad's 99, so you got plenty of time.
Yeah. Yeah, but you don't know how it's a big effort. Okay, next.
Okay.
So can we implement? Yes, we can. All right, next slide. So the status of RCD in Bedford. We put together an article for home rule petition. So actually these states that were mentioned, like Lexington and Concord and Arlington, they actually don't use ranked choice voting. But when you do ranked choice voting, you have to get permission from the state legislature. So those communities have submitted to the state legislature that, that they want ranked choice voting. And unfortunately, it's been kind of sitting there. So we're hoping that the more towns that get into that pool, the less that they'll be able to ignore it. But right now, they're just ignoring it. And it's really kind of aggravating that the state has to give permission to the town to tell it how to run. But that's the
We
way
have
that,
home rule petition.
yeah, that's the way that it works. Okay, so we've got that drafted, and we went to the select board, and they support it, but they needed to get the legal buy-in. And the current attorney has questions about wording. Specifically, he thinks there's a word that says, will elect by popularity. And he doesn't think popularity, that ranked choice voting would somehow conflict with that. And so the attorney's concerned that when he submits it to the Attorney General will reject it. And so we're looking for examples of other communities. He thinks the charter needs to be modified for that word population. And that's a pretty heavy lift to do. I mean, we have a very supportive town board, a select board member, Sean Hannigan. I don't know if you've heard of Sean Hannigan. Anyway, he's very active in the town government. So he's working with us, and he's going to try to talk to the attorney, and we're going to give him ammunition. But at this point, it's too late to get it onto the march, because there's a lot of stuff you have to do once you say it's on. You have to print it out, you got to do information campaigns. So it's just not practical for this march, unfortunately. So we're planning it for the November 25th town meeting. And then this is a great quote. You want to read that, Madeline?
Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has.
That's it.
Yeah.
So questions?
Why are they sitting on
The town legislature, the state?
it?
Yeah. They sit on just about everything. I really don't. Do you have any idea why?
So the specific reason why they feel they sit on everything, but why they feel especially safe and comfortable sitting on the home rule petitions for ranked choice voting has been told to me is that there's only been a particular group of communities that have sent home rule petitions for ranked choice voting, and they have been largely white, progressive sort of communities. So they were very comfortable just being like, okay, that's what sort of the progressives want. But that's why we're working to get home rule petitions from gateway cities. I've been working for the last 18, 19 months to get a home rule petition from the city of Boston. Through that effort, I've built a pretty large coalition, over 60 organizations that do a lot of work in the city, but also at the State House. So we're hoping to just line up more and more dominoes to the point where it's, a foregone conclusion that this is what the people want. I think applying that pressure in that way is the only way that's going to get them to do it. Doing it because it's the right thing to do generally doesn't work too well. So, yeah.
What about we have Rotary clubs in every town basically, or every area. So when you said gateway cities, I initially thought of Lowell. We have a Rotary club in Lowell. maybe you guys could speak with is, Rotary Club, I'm sure Lawrence has one too. I'm
That
sure
would be
that
great. That would
those
be
would
great.
both be gateway connections for
Yeah.
you.
You could hold a meeting where you invite a whole group of Rotary clubs together, regional. We have like assistant governors in our district, where each assistant governor, like you, would have a cluster of clubs.
When are those larger meetings?
You can call those meetings anytime you want. You work with the assistant governor or the
Okay.
district governor. I can give you that contact information.
I mean, would they like having a presentation like this? Okay.
Yeah, because it's not like you're a candidate going for an office. That's what we don't get involved in politics. But this is something different.
Yeah.
Well, this, educational, it's not.
This is politics.
Is it?
I don't think everything is politics, but in the sense that organizations look at it, this is a nonpartisan, nonprofit, electoral reform, pro-democracy, civic engagement.
It's politics.
Yeah.
But we don't.
I say all that to say, but yes.
You look at the states that have, and they're all Republican.
Well, there's something good for it for conservatives, liberals, Democrats, Republicans. It's something that is gonna help bring out the will of the people, whatever that may be. So if you bring ranked choice voting into an area that is Republican, it's not like all of a sudden you're gonna have a Democrat. You're probably gonna have a stronger choice within that the Republican sort of field. It sort of takes stuff away, the control away from like the party insiders and puts the power more back to the people. So the people sort of determine the outcomes.
Hey!
I remember an article, I think it was in the MIT Review, or one of the MIT magazines, that talked about the aspects of ranked choice voting and how it would improve the process.
Ranked choice voting is a step, to me, closer to proportional representation,
Right.
so that each district would have more than one representative. Like, I'm sure that a lot of Republicans in Massachusetts, but Massachusetts, their vote doesn't go anywhere because they're not represented.
Yeah.
And so this would be one step closer to more representation, whether it be Republican or Democrat or libertarian. They would have more to say,
Right.
even in Massachusetts, so.
And it tends to move candidates to the middle, and we didn't put that up there, it tends to move them to the middle, and it tends to have less vitriolic statements, because you want to get those second choices, right? And so, in the example with, don't know if I'm going to pronounce his name, Carrera, he was different than all the other candidates, and that's why he won, right? So if you have one candidate who's very different and a bunch of other candidates who are similar, that one candidate is going to win.
And in Massachusetts, if we had ranked choice voting at the federal level, I mean, some people don't like to hear this, but I'm pretty sure it would lead to at least one Congress member from the Massachusetts delegation being Republican. It would lead to an increase of representation of Republicans at the State House, right? Just because it wouldn't be sort of the stranglehold where one party controls everything, essentially.
Well, the problem with that thought is, of course, there's gerrymandering, which is controlled by the party in power, which makes the districts, and there's only one per district. So it doesn't matter if you have that, if there's a 52% are one party, 48 are the other, because of the gerrymandering, and they make it so their party has the majority in as many districts as possible. So I don't think that works.
Well,
It was a specific hypothetical, but
Right,
I think what you're saying isn't wrong. You're
So
saying it
unless, so the only solution is to make it a multi-member district from one member, instead of, so you have 3, 4 districts with 1 member each, maybe you can combine 3 or 4 districts and then have 4 representatives. One could be a Republican, one could be, so they're different, but I'm not sure if this is possible and whether it's actually constitutionally allowed to change the 1-member district.
Well, there people have proposed multi-member districts before,
Yeah.
and it's something that's talked about. I would say it's something that's like, we're still trying to convince and get the word out about ranked choice voting and
Right.
the benefits that that'll bring
Yeah.
to democracy.
Yeah.
So, when I first started out on the Boston campaign, I said, well, if I wanted to fix all these problems and it was up to me, I would just draw a big X, right? and then have
What I'm saying
4
is-
multi-member districts where each district, each of those 4 have 3 representatives, right? All elected with ranked choice voting, and that way, everybody would have the maximum amount of representation, but it's not up to me, right? I have
It's
to
a
go out and
good
talk
idea,
to.
it's good to see,
Yeah.
where it could be
Yeah,
eventually.
and the proportional aspect of it too is with the at-large council, you have 4 councilors. So with that, that's a proportional RCV election.
Yeah.
So
I wonder if
I can talk about this forever, but.
people on,
Oh, yeah, anybody on the Zoom have a question?
Am I on Zoom, Jim? Go ahead, Jim.
Yes, I'm a proponent of the new concept, but I have a question about the processing of the vote after it's done before you can report it. Does that mean that each voting district has to have, if you've got a large number of people, do you have to have increased computing power to be able to run those numbers and come up with an answer?
Yeah, the computing power is not difficult. You might have to change software and you have to change ballots, so it's not free, but it's not that heavy a lift either.
The cost of the town is negligible. Essentially, it would be a software upgrade that would be added to the RCV-ready election equipment that you already have in
Oh.
use.
Okay.
Yeah, so it would be a one-time cost, and then the ballot design would be different, obviously, because you have to rank
Sure.
in order, just checking off the box. The difference in reporting wouldn't be too different. So right now, at the end of election day, as you close out each machine, there's a receipt that comes out that shows sort of the vote totals. With ranked choice voting, that receipt would show the amount of number 1 votes each candidate got. So if somebody had an outright winner and you had somebody at the end of the election day at each of those precincts able to capture that information, you'd be able to surmise who won pretty quickly. But if nobody gets an outright majority on election day, it wouldn't be until those ballots are brought back to the election office and processed. Oftentimes folks think that it leads to increased delays in reporting times, like we will hear the election results the next day. That's not the case, and that's not something to do with RCV. That's a decision based on what the election administrators decide as far as policy on when they'll report it out. Essentially, it's the same thing. It's a math equation. I stay away from the word algorithm because algorithm, it means the same thing, but it's essentially the same software that happens now, where it computes at the push of a button, and it happens fairly instantaneous. So it's not something that would increase waiting periods or create delays in reporting times.
And would it say, it wouldn't come out, it would just have the winner, right? Whoever won. It wouldn't say, this person came in last, so we had to redistribute their stuff around and, he came in third, right? It just gives you the result.
No, round by round, it would let you know the results on.
Right, but not to the public.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a public election, nothing to hide. I mean, I think if, folks want to know how, because let's say you voted in the first round and, the person who's in third place ends up winning. If you supported the person who won in the first round, you want to know how that came to be.
Oh, I see.
Right, so it has to be transparent.
It's sort of like in sports, you have the football ranking, you get how many first place votes you get, how many second place votes you get, or the Heisman, I think they do it the same way.
Oscars does the same.
Oscars.
Oscars uses it. A lot more organizations and institutions use it than we realize.
So, question for you. Now, you drop out someone at some point, correct?
Yeah.
So is it possible that a person who is in, if it goes down enough, would actually have the most votes, but they've already been dropped out?
Well, then you go to their third choice.
No,
No,
what
no,
I'm
no,
saying
it
is,
is, I can answer that.
so let's say, first vote, I vote for person A, but nobody else votes for them on the first ballot, on the first round. They get dropped out because they have the least number.
Mhm.
But the second choice, 50% have that person, but he's already dropped out, yet he would have won in the second round of voting, but he's been dropped out.
Well, he wouldn't have,
No,
mathematically, he wouldn't have been able
gets
to.
redistributed.
No, so
No,
I have person A as my candidate, but no one else does,
As the first candidate.
as the first candidate.
But everyone
Everybody
has
else in the
to
room had person A as their second candidate, but since I was the only one who had my first, my vote would get, he has the least amount, he gets dropped out. Everybody else's second vote doesn't get counted because he's already dropped out.
Well, essentially, every individual voter has their ballot, right? So the folks who put another person as number one, that their ballot sequence is however they put their order of preference, right? They wanted this person number one, this person number two, this person number three. If they wanted the person that got eliminated, they could have put that person as number one.
No, but they
if
all put him as number two.
But if they put him as
But
number
they
two
put
and that
other
candidate's already
different
eliminated,
people
it
as
would go
number
to the
one.
number three.
So I'm asking, is that a possibility?
It's possible, it's
possibility.
unlikely.
It's extremely unlikely, but as far as the person being eliminating would have won with a majority, that's
It's
not possible.
Why is it not possible? Because the person that I voted for, he got dropped out, but everybody else was voting for somebody else. Mine got dropped
How
out.
can you be dropped out if you?
I mean, if there's multiple
I'll let
candidates,
it go. I know it's in my head,
and you get knocked off because you have the least amount, like by virtue, you wouldn't have enough to carry a majority.
On the
even-
first round.
Well, you're saying somebody else's second choice votes. So in that situation, nobody would have enough second choice votes being the second person eliminated in order to have the amount that you would need to carry over the majority of the other people that are still in the race.
Unless you have 4 other candidates. Quarter of the people voted for a quarter of other candidates. All their second choice votes were for that same candidate. So, at everybody else having a quarter, no one's going to have 50%. So the next person gets dropped out, drops down. That second choice person still has now more, would have had more. Can he get back into the race?
No, once you're eliminated.
So the second chance candidate over here gets dropped out from the start. So he could have had more second choices with everybody else being split.
I think that's true, and I think would be rare.
You see where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I understand
I'll
the
leave it at that.
scenario.
Let somebody else
I
ask
can-
questions.
I can talk to Greg.
Anybody online have a question? Anybody in Zoom? No?
So I'll talk to our policy director and get a very specific, I know that Greg would be like, oh, yeah, that's this. I just don't have that encyclopedic knowledge of a PhD elections
Actually,
expert.
Maybe we
but,
should have, or I should have put the website address, because the statewide organization has so much information, so if you went there.
I can get that information to you, 100%.
You could.
There isn't a question we haven't encountered, so
Yeah.
I know it's somewhere in there, in our database.
It should have been on there.
No, it's okay.
Anyway, our website, the Bedford website. also
Oh, we
has
forgot to
all
tell you
the
about our
information.
website. Yeah, we didn't put that up there, did
Right, well, let's see. Can you
we?
go
Anyway,
back?
it's bedfordrcv.org.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you go.
You got it.
is it there?
Oh, yeah, okay.
And this is recorded for us.
This is
right?
recorded for us. It'll be on the website.
So there's a lot of information on that website, if you're interested.
Could also write something in the Bedford Citizen.
Yeah.
We have,
Okay.
we're gonna get much more active in like September, October before.
Right.
Well, that's think it would be interesting to do it sporadically so people remember, oh, yeah, you know.
And we're planning a movie screening as well of Majority Rules, which is a ranked choice voting movie about sort of the ranked choice movement in Alaska, in Maine, in different places, in Oregon, which is about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
We're looking to play it at the, not at the library, but
I think probably the best place is the
Council on
place with
Aging.
the biggest room, I think, is like the senior center. Or sorry, the Council on Aging.
Oh, Council on Aging, yeah.
I'll give some information out about that. But yeah, this is a great presentation. Good job.
Awesome.
Thank you.
If you want to stop the recording.
Oh, just hit stop.
That's the end of the meeting.
Bye. Get to another meeting.
Thank you, everybody, for showing up. It was a great meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I was also